everybody. Now they can see our smiling faces for what they're worth. Well, hello, everybody. It is Monday. It is August 18th. It is 8 p.m. UK time, which means obviously here on MMOBuff, we have the MMOBuff Podcast. It is episode 40. We are talking evolution. My name is Pseudo, and I've missed you all so much. And I'll give you some news on that one in just a second in Vina. But I am joined tonight by, and I can't think of a lot of L words to add to the alliteration of your name, Lewis. So I am joined by Lewis Lane, who is lovely and light on his feet. And say hi. Go on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lewis. Lewis Lane. And you can get all of the jokes about Superman out quickly as you want, so they can move on.
You've just given them food. What if they didn't make that association?
Well, I was hoping that the shirt would kind of
Wow.
could help that out.
Oh, I didn't even notice. I did not even notice. But here's the thing. I want you to take a moment. Tell people what you do. And one of the reasons why I pulled you on this show.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of an indie game developer in the sense that I do develop games but haven't released anything yet. And really, my friend Chris does quite a few shows with MMOBuff. And I was watching and just thought, I've got to get involved with this. It's great.
Yes. So I have to ask, how much experience do you have in development?
I've been developing for, well, since I was about 8 years old, actually. So, yeah, a long time. I kind of consider myself a bit of a kind of theorist in game mechanics.
Mechanics themselves?
Yeah, I like to try and break games, and then from breaking games, see how they work. And that's been something that I've just done for as long as I can remember, really.
So are you one of those people who likes to sit there and try and figure out the mathematical equations behind why certain games work and certain abilities in games work and where the balanced break really is? Or are you the one who goes, that door, it should open. I bet you if I wall hop on it, I can break the door.
The latter. I'm terrible at maths, but I'm great at jumping over doors.
See, you don't have to be good at math to be an independent developer, my friends. No, you don't. But yes, so Lewis, two things before we get started. First, for everyone who had asked, and in particular it was really Invina who had asked just a little update on my back and stuff. Just so you know, folks, my jaw is still swollen. Unfortunately, my wisdom teeth, I still have them. That's why I'm so wise. But anyway, my wisdom teeth have got to come out, and until they do, I'm going to have a swollen jaw. But at least I can talk, which is a good thing. As for my back, I actually get to start PT for that sometime, hopefully in the next week or two. Fingers crossed. But yes, and the other thing that I have to point out, many of you guys will notice that Lewis has a really big thing on his mic. It's a sock.
It's a it's a jury-rigged windbreak.
It's a sock.
Posing as a sock. It is a sock, basically. Yes, sorry, it is a sock. But it works. It does work.
Yes, so it does work, and this is a good thing. Now, there are a couple of bits of news, as I said to everybody, that we have coming to you. We have quite a bit of swag that we're going to be giving away over the next couple of weeks here on MMOBuff from Gamescom. Things from t-shirts to game codes to a whole bunch of other stuff that we were lucky enough to get our hands on at Gamescom. Massive, massive thank you to many of our team members who went there. So we had Dave, who does blog writing for us. If you haven't had a chance to check out his latest article on MMOBuff.TV, it went out today. It's about Arcage. It's exceptional. Mad props to Xavier for the picture. That picture that he made for it is just epic. I'm still sitting there going, tingles. But he was there. We also had Screenager, Ed, there as well. And we also had one of our production team, Frank, who happened to show up there as well. And they were running around like chickens with their heads cut off because half the team couldn't make it. Me, because one, ill. And, you know, it's just, It was a really bad week last week. Everybody was busy. Everybody was sick. But we have a lot of stuff we're giving away. The other bit of news, as I said, guys, this is our 40th episode of MMOBuff Podcast. It is also the last episode of the MMOBuff Podcast. And that is because we are changing things up here at MMOBuff. So we have some big news that'll be coming. Pay attention. Will there be a show next week? Yeah. What kind of show? You'll just have to tune in and find out. Because it might hint at something. Maybe. Possibly. Probably. So yes.
Such a tease.
Oh, that's the thing. You know, it's one of those things. I have the information. It's like right there on my screen because, you know, I have all of our projects and I'm constantly in touch with everybody, but I can't tell you yet. It's just one of those things. It's like sad face. But, you know, hey, don't worry, though, because there will be something going on next week. But this is going to be kind of our fanfare goodbye, which is why we're talking about evolution. Because MMOs, in general, have evolved. And for those of you who are unaware, if we go way back in time to things like Ultima and EverQuest and even the very early vanilla WoWs and things like that, that was where we kind of started to see the MMO genre evolve. And now we have an independent developer out of Australia who has come up with a non-combat, non-competitive MMO that was announced at Gamescom, and it looks interesting. So we have kind of got all kinds of things that have happened in MMOs, and one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to totally be picking on Lewis this entire episode.
Okay.
Because I know for a fact that you've stopped playing MMOs.
Yeah, to a great degree.
To a degree.
To a major degree, really. My first MMO was Ultima Online, which is, I think, probably one of the earliest.
One of them, yeah.
Certainly one of the earliest in memory. And I played that for a bit, and then I kind of got swayed by the 3D graphics of EverQuest, and that was 1999. So that's a long time ago. Wow. 15 years. And really it was the idea that you could kind of explore a world full of other people. I was used to games like Quake, where you basically joined a server and you played against 4 people or maybe 8 people maximum. And to join a 3D world with thousands of people and talk to them and play a cooperative game with them just seemed amazing to me. As I'm sure it was to many people at the time. There was nothing else really like that.
Well, absolutely not. I mean, it was one of the things where you could sit in your own home and hang out with people. Now, LAN parties have been around for generations, if you want to call it that. People used to get together and play bridge. That's a LAN party, people, for a tabletop card game. Kind of. But it's changed to the point where you actually, and I'm getting drops. I don't know. If our stream is skipping, I do apologize, everybody. I don't know why. For some reason, it's dropping the same amount every single time, so it's weird. So if we're skipping, sorry. I don't know why. But yes, because of the fact that it was the first one where you, thanks to the internet, didn't actually have to leave or have people come over. You could, but you really wanted your serious gaming rig because of the quality of graphics. And I mean, oh, wow. Do you remember when getting 1 gig of RAM was amazing? And you were just like, dude, I have a gig of RAM.
I remember 32 megs of RAM being amazing. That's where my name comes from.
I hate to say it, but I completely remember that as well. I do. It just takes me back. It really, really does. And hello, Screenager. Congratulations. You totally missed me thanking you for all of your hard work for the Gamescom stuff. And I'm getting more drops. I don't know what's going on today. Oh, you guys, let us know if it's skipping too much. We do make funny faces. Still. We could. Okay, so that's enough of that. Just I've got to stop that. That's got to go. But yes, so you started playing back in the old school. Now, why did you stop? Was it just you didn't have time anymore, or were you actually getting bored?
A bit of both, really. I didn't really get into the PvP stuff, which seems to be what carries a lot of MMO games, or the raid stuff. EverQuest was such that it was so hard and made at such a time that expectations weren't that a game would progress you very quickly. When you play World of Warcraft, you get a lot of stuff handed to you on a plate. Whereas with EverQuest, you really had to grind. If you got killed later on in like a higher level, you could lose like half or an entire level, and then it would take days to get that back. So I got to not even really kind of a raid sort of level, and I was doing a lot of sort of role playing really, getting really into the role playing side of things. And I used to help newbies out and kind of make quests on the fly for them. I do it all in character, and I used to really enjoy that. But I couldn't be bothered with the whole grinding thing. And I think it started to dawn on me that that's what these games were demanding of me.
Time.
Yeah, lots of time, and lots of not very well spent time.
Ooh, now see, you and I could get into a debate about what makes quality time and what doesn't. And in fact, we probably will. I will write this down so I do not forget. Quality time in MMOs. Okay. And I still don't see why we're having all these screen drops. Something is weird. Oh, I know what's causing it, and I will fix that. We're getting updates in all of our stuff from Gamescom, and I forgot I was still connected. So all the updates from Gamescom are coming into my system at the same time as I'm trying to do the show. Professional! That's what I am, folks. Right. Now, for me, I stopped playing for MMOs at one particular point in time because I actually got burned out. And it was due to the people, the community, that destroyed it for me, not the games themselves. I still find to this day the ability to get together with a group of people with a common goal or a task to be an exceptional amount of time, quality time, especially in today's world where you can have communities all across the world who get to hang out and know each other, and yet, you know, to support the healthy gamer out there, because I'm a huge fan of the Viking Nation, you know, you can still be healthy. You can still go outside. You can still get a tan. You don't have to be as pale as me from being sick and not being able to see the sun. But you could still be healthy and hang out with people who have a common interest. And I don't know, have you ever tried to have a conversation about gaming with someone who does not play games?
I've tried. Yeah, I've learned my lesson not to.
Yeah.
You tend to get into a conversation with these days with people about gaming, and they start talking. Oh yeah, I really love Candy Crush. Okay, yeah, that's not really gaming.
Oh, they'll see that you're going to upset the Candy Crush fans that are out there. No,
all 12 billion of them.
Exactly. Way to screw our audience there, Lewis. Thanks. No. When it comes to gaming, there's a whole bunch of different types of gaming, and I actually kind of am thankful for games like Candy Crush. To me, they're the gateway drugs that bring people into other games. Because one of the biggest complaints I remember people saying about MMOs is it's a time waster. You used it yourself. Earlier, you said, you know, spending not exactly good quality time and things like that. Mm-hmm. And hello. People waste their time playing Candy Crush, Fruit Ninja, any of the other casual games that are out there. So they can't use that excuse anymore. Now it's more a matter of, are you a casual player who just plays the occasional game on, say, your tablet or your phone? Or are you one of those people who likes to get into the little bit more competitive aspect where it challenges you? Have you ever played Dark Souls?
I've tried to play it. It's very, very hard. And
Unforgiving?
The control schemes, well, it's the control scheme more than anything. It feels like Satan set up the control system for it, and that seems to be the hardest part of the game for me. So I couldn't really get into it. And I did try the original 3 times, and I also tried Dark Souls 2, and I really couldn't deal with it. Just the controls alone. The biggest enemy was myself and my own horrible grasp at the controls.
Oh, wow. And I'm going to put, in case you haven't noticed, hey, folks, you're on MMOBuff.TV. Yay! So, Raikachi points out Tetris is more dynamic than Candy Crush. I slightly agree with that. But
Yeah,
I also played, and I can't remember what it's called now. Oh, yes, I do. Tetranet. This was back in early 2000s. It was a multiplayer Tetris where you could get bonuses and you could also get penalties and detriments that you could apply to the other people who you were playing with. And I remember 8 of us playing it at once, and it got really competitive, really competitive. Oh, man.
I think that's kind of the joy of games. I mean, I played Puyo Puyo, which I think it was taken to the American market as Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine.
Oh, wow.
The Genesis. I used to love that game, and in fact, a friend of mine went to a recent event, Retro Game, or I think something like that, and there was a tournament there for that game. And I really loved that game, and I love the competitive aspect of it, and I love the adrenaline-soaked, fast-paced kind of competitive nature of the game. So it's not that I'm dismissing games like Candy Crush, but I do like to play against people. I think that is where the joy lies.
Well, why don't you PvP in MMOs then?
I don't really know. It's something that I think I would like, but then I've got a lot of friends who've played that and have said that it isn't really as satisfying as it sounds. I know I shouldn't really go on what my friends say, but it does feel like if you're 10 levels above someone, then there's nothing you can do in terms of skill to outsmart them.
But see, there's multiple types of PvP. Take ArcAge, for example. ArcAge is a new MMO, and again, I reiterate, if you have not had a chance to check out MMOBuff.TV's website today, do so. Dave's piece on it is pretty encompassing, and that game is massive, but they have world PvP, you know, you're running around, quote-unquote, lower level, you can still get your head squished. They have arenas, typical things you expect to see in an MMO, but they also have naval battles. And pirates. They have pirates.
Pirates sounds good. Pirates is it's doing it for me.
The pirates part, not the PvP part.
It's something new, isn't it? It's riding around in ships and calling people landlubbers and running around with a knife between your teeth.
Where's the rum gone? And other things like that.
I bet there's 1,000 million trillion people called Captain Jack Sparrow in it.
It's almost as bad as Legolas in any game that has archers and elves.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. Any game with ships in it, there's a million Jack Sparrows.
Oh, I hope not. I'd like to think us as gamers are a bit more creative. And yeah, folks, go for it. See if you can't find an awesome PvP game that is worthy of our Lewis Fluffy Mike Lane.
Woolly more than fluffy?
Wool? It's wool sock?
It is wool, yeah. Only the best for my sock mic.
And that right there is a snippet that I will keep, and it's just going to be nothing's better than my woolly sock.
It's not going to go on a 10-hour mix on YouTube with some music against it.
Thanks for the idea. I think maybe I will do that. Absolutely. Okay, so we know that games have changed. We know that things are evolving. I know that for me as a gamer, I look for things that are entertaining to me, and I accept the fact that there are going to be things that do not appeal to me in a game. I accept the fact that there's no such thing as a game that hits every single dot that I am looking for in either an MMO or a single player or co-op or multiplayer. I accept this. And it does lead to an interesting situation we're running into in today's day and age. We are now at a point in time where if you want to play with 4 of your friends, you don't need an MMO. You're in a day and age where if you want to play with 8 of your friends, you don't need an MMO. If you want to play with 5, you may not need an MMO either. But there are games out there that have a persistent world, which is one of the things that classifies as an MMO, that are coming. And this is another step in the evolution of games and MMOs. Now, when you and I first started talking, we were like, so what do we want to talk about on this show? And I'm like, well, we talk about MMOs. And you're like, I haven't played them in a while. And I'm like, why? And we've kind of covered a little bit of that. But some of the problems you had mentioned to me when we first started talking about this, and this is 2 weeks ago now that you and I have been discussing this, don't exist anymore in MMOs. Right. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to pull into your brain, and I'd like to see some of your complaints about MMOs. Now, you're the kind of person, and this is why I'm picking on you. You said you're the kind of person who likes to break things.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to an MMO, what is it that breaks it for you? What is the thing that just kind of makes you just go, that's it? I can't be done.
I think there's two separate things here. I mean, the breaking things aspect of it is really finding ways to do things that weren't intended. That's a kind of deep-seated joy with me. I remember playing games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, where I was finding my way outside of the maps. Being outside of the map seems to be a general theme for me. If I can climb up, if you're playing something like World of Warcraft, I'm the guy who's halfway up a mountain, waving down at people saying, "Look where I am." So that's the kind of thing that I mean by breaking the game.
I have to ask before you go too much further. Did you get into old school Garub, Zul'Gurub?
No.
There was a place in Darkshire. And if you walked up a particular mountain and you did a few couple jumps here and there, because of the fact that the map is set up the way it is, although ZG is instanced, they still had to put something in place of where ZG was on the map. And there was a way to get there. I don't know if it still exists. And obviously it probably does because you can now fly in the Eastern Kingdom and stuff like that. But this is pre-Burning Crusade. I'm talking old school stuff. So, yeah, I just was curious if you've made it there. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I can't really think of any places in World of Warcraft that I did manage to find, but I was playing it during the open beta. In fact, during the closed beta, I got an invite for that. And I actually spent the majority of my time playing the beta, and I was really impressed by World of Warcraft. I thought it was a very polished game. But it did pretty much, and you said this earlier, it did pretty much the same thing that EverQuest had done for the last 2 years before that. And once I'd found my way outside of maps and killed a few skeletons, it was felt like the same thing over and over again, except with a new audience of people who didn't really understand what was going on. And that combined with it was novelty and a bit of what you said about the people as well. There was a lot of people who didn't really know what was going on. It felt, I don't want to sound like a snob, but I play a lot of first-person shooters and used to be pretty good at them. And then to play a game like World of Warcraft where there's a lot of very, very casual players who probably haven't got a grasp of the controls and don't really know how to play it.
Are you trying to say that World of Warcraft is the Candy Crush of MMOs?
It was at the time when I played it. Certainly in the beta, there was a lot of people who'd never played a game like that before, and they were swayed by this open world.
8, 9, 10 years ago?
Yeah. 2005, I think. So yeah, nearly 10 years ago.
Wow.
So I'm sure that a lot of things have changed, but that was what broke it for me. It was the feeling that I was in a game that had a lot of potential but didn't really explore it because it was catering to people who weren't gamers or who were new gamers. And it felt very weighted towards the front end. Now, I know that World of Warcraft and pretty much any massively multiplayer game now is very focused on the end game, on the raid content, but I've never done that, and that's something I'll freely admit. I've never got to a point in an MMO game where I've managed to get into raiding. Because I don't feel like I have the time to devote to grinding in those games. And maybe that's something else that's changed now. I'd be very surprised if it is, but it does seem to me that they've made some moves towards that. But you're probably better in a position to tell me that.
It's one of those things. MMOs have a very delicate balance they have to walk. And this is, I think, one of the reasons why I'm so fascinated by them, not just as a player, but as a journalist and a developer myself. They have to balance out the new audience. So if someone is joining because their friend said you should check this out and it's the first MMO they've ever seen, you kind of got to be ready to cater for that. At the same time, MMOs have been around for long enough now that you have people who are literally considered veterans. So what comes to mind for me there is catering to the veterans. Now, there are different types of veterans. There are the veterans who love the PvP. There are the veterans who love crafting systems. There are the veterans who love exploration. There are the veterans who love PvE content. There are the veterans who love role play. You have a lot of different veterans. And an MMO, to cater for longevity, kind of needs to be able to tick all the boxes without neglecting another box, unless they are specifically billing themselves as something specific. Now I'm going to take a quick moment and tackle Raikachi here, who says, so if I get this right, Lewis looks away from certain games when mechanics don't work properly, so he's a perfectionist, and thus the only game worthy for him should be Tetris. It is polished. You can't put bricks outside the wall, aka the screen, has really nice retro music, pumps up your adrenaline the higher the level, you hook up your connection cable and you can play against each other. It's everything Lewis needs from what he understands. It's all about Tetris.
We just need an MMO version now, then.
There you go, folks. Get out there. But what I was saying is, unless you specifically bill your MMO in a manner that caters to what I will now start saying things like niche markets. So, for example, this new MMO that has been introduced at Gamescom called Wanderer. Now, Wanderer has no competition, no combat. It is an exploration MMO. That is the entire point behind it. Don't have a lot new information on that, but it's something that kind of strikes me as interesting. Because we've had shows here on MMOBuff where Martin and I, Mizpa and I, have literally fought about why do people play MMOs? Do they play it just for the competition? And it's one of those things that's being removed, but it's being done by an independent company, an independent developer. It's not a AAA thing. Sorry, just Wander. There you go. That's what it's called. Screen can give you more information on this one. He's actually had a chance to look at it. I'm really jealous. But, you have an MMO that has no competition that most people look for in an MMO. That's niche. Then you've got things like Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen. Now, you may be familiar with these names. Brad McQuaid, Salem Grant. You're familiar with these names. These guys decided they wanted to make a niche MMO that punished you and was not for the casual player in any way, shape, or form. And honestly, some of the things that I have seen from them look exceptional. So it's still in development. We haven't even gotten alphas or even too many prototypes. We've seen a little bit because they hit Kickstarter and they've got a website. And in all honesty, if you want to check it out, it's well worth it. But to do a mass market MMO, you still have to hit those different dots. And that is a very difficult thing to do. Because the moment you make a change here, because of the natural netting that is involved in almost the weaving of all of the mechanics in an MMO, and because they're all so fitted close together, one change here will completely destroy something here, which will piss off somebody here. And it's like... It's an insane, delicate balancing act. And the fact that people are still, to this day, because we have new MMOs coming out, that they're still attempting to do it is fascinating to me. Yeah.
There was a game that, there's one that I didn't mention actually. There's a game a long time ago, not long after EverQuest, a few years after EverQuest, called Horizon Shadow of Astaria. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have. And in fact, I
You
know
have?
somebody who I should really put you in touch with because I think they believe that is one of the best games ever produced, even to this day.
I followed the forums avidly for that game, and they promised a lot of things. They promised something like 30 or 40 different races, and there was underwater civilizations, and there was multiple home cities for each civilization, and there was flight, and you could be dragons and things like that. And some of these things got into the game, and a lot of these things didn't get into the game, but it promised a lot. And that was kind of at a point where I was still very much into MMO games.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like that was a natural progression. It was offering so much. It offered a really good crafting system. It offered a huge world. It was doing things like it had kind of procedurally run flora and fauna. So you'd be able to like hunt animals, and the animals would kind of have hunger statistics, and they would eat plants and other animals, and
almost built in AI.
There was a lot of this stuff going on, and in fact, even with EverQuest, I was involved with one of the free shard communities for EverQuest called EQMU, where they were making their own servers, and some people were trying to do the same thing on that as well, and that really interested me. That was like kind of like the Radiant AI stuff that was promised in Oblivion and Skyrim. The idea that the whole world kind of ran along as you were playing it. And I guess that's another thing, slightly aside, but it's another thing that disappointed me a little bit about World of Warcraft was that the NPCs just kind of stood there with an exclamation mark above their head, whereas in EverQuest they'd walk around the zones and they'd have a personality and have folklore behind them. There was a guard in one of the zones in EverQuest called Sergeant Slate, and he'd walk from one end of the zone to the other, beating the crap out of everything in the zone, basically. And a lot of folklore built up about this guy. He didn't really say much, but people loved him and loved to hate him. He was this villainous character who everyone had applied the folklore to. He didn't do any of it himself. And I loved that. I thought that was a beautiful thing about EverQuest. And I think that came about because kind of serendipitously, it came out because it was just a simple mechanic that was allowed to play out.
Well, see, this is the thing. When it comes to MMOs, I don't think a lot of people will say we've seen the heyday. Oh, we've seen the golden age of MMOs. And I disagree entirely. I think the golden age of MMOs comes when there are so many different types of MMOs that people can't say, oh, that's a clone, because it's so original. Like Wander. Wander looks really original to me. When it comes to questing, when it comes to giving a game immersion quality, because to me, that's something I look for in a game. I want to be immersed in the story. I don't want to sit there and read scroll after scroll after scroll after scroll. Now, don't get me wrong. I can, and I have enjoyed it in past games, but I'm past that. I have reached the point now where I want to be entertained by the game while I'm being given quests. And there is one MMO right now that sticks out in my brain as one of the most engaging questing experiences I have ever experienced. So much so that I can guarantee you, with some of the changes that we're doing here at MMOBuff, y'all are going to see me playing it. It's the Secret World.
Okay, I've not heard of that.
You've not heard? Woo! Okay. All right, so here's the thing. The Secret World, the way it does quests is you can only carry one world quest at a time because it carries you from beginning to end. But there are lots of little mini quests and side quests that you can do. And the Secret World is all about breaking the fourth wall. So it firmly breaks the fourth wall. And it is enjoying. There's a lot of conspiracy theories. You've got the Illuminati, you've got dragons, you've got Templars and things like that. But here's the thing about the questing experience with them. When you go to collect a quest, you actually have the quest giver talking to you. They talk to you, but they don't sit there. It goes into a cutscene. Yeah, you can skip through it if you're one of those people who wants to get past all of that stuff, and that's fine. You don't have to pay attention. But if you actually pay attention and let them talk, the voice acting is exceptional. The storytelling is amazing. They sit there and they talk to you. Yeah, so this is what's going on. Yeah, you don't tell my partner about that one time because, we all have to survive. It's not my fault I was stockpiling this stuff. But hey, at least I was, because the end of the world is quote unquote occurring. And they tell you what's kind of going on, but not really. And the thing about that is by the time they finish the cutscene, you still are not 100% sure what your quest is.
Right.
So you look over to the quest log, and it'll tell you, so explore this, or figure out the answer to this, or maybe even go kill X amount of these things, or go repair this bridge, or start this event, or what have you. But they don't come right out and say, yeah, I need you guys to go kill 12 of these things. It's not like that. It's an immersive story behind it. Now, here's the thing. This game has an insane amount of quest types. Now, like I said, this is a fourth wall breaking game. It's all about the conspiracy in today's day and age. Like I said, Illuminati, Templars, dragons. It's you start to think about that in its own context, and how many music videos are like, oh my God, it's an Illuminati music. Anyway, so some of them, like Gernicus has said here, the investigation missions are the most amazing things in the world. Okay? Some of the investigation missions are things such as you have to figure out how to handle this puzzle that has been put in front of you. You've got 4 statues. They're different statues of something, and you need to figure out what emote you need to do to them. It doesn't tell you. You have to figure out a whole bunch of exploration. Now, they give you a little clue. Now, there's this one tiny little instance thing, because some of the things that they do are instance, but there's this one tiny little thing that has on the ground letters. And they're sort of like Greek letters and things like that. And the clue is some kind of name of some kind of maybe demon or angel or something that deals with maybe something that happened in Genesis in the Bible. Or maybe it had something to do with some crazy website thing. And there are so many websites that are run by the secret world, and you have to bring a browser up in the game. You have to start looking through Wikipedia to find some kind of connection between Greece and maybe what this had to do with this particular text, with maybe a musical note, and you have to find the actual score, because if you don't know the score, you can't actually solve the puzzle. It is completely fourth wall breaking. Completely. Right. But the clues and the way that they do things are just exceptional. Absolutely exceptional. And it is easy to die in that game. Really easy to die. It's also what is termed a classless game. You get to spend your experience points in the things that you want to do.
Right.
As long as you're carrying the particular weapon, etc. But that questing experience is one of the evolutions. Now, the sad part about this game is the fact that it came out unfinished. Exceptionally so that it took them another patch or 2 to get the mechanics right. So to start off with, it felt clunky. It didn't feel very good. The quests were still there. Everything was still neat. But the combat experience, which is something that is a big part of that game, was horrible. I've gone back into this game now, and it is, to this day, my favorite questing experience. It is, to this day, one of the most immersive games where I can still, to this day, remember the storylines involved in each of the different areas. I can't say that for World of Warcraft. I can't say that for Eve. I can't say that for EverQuest. I can't say that for Star Wars Galaxies. I can't say that for any of them, but I can damn well say it for The Secret World because of the way they did it.
Right. And it's interesting that it seems to be, it's very interesting that you don't really see that in MMOs, but I think one of the reasons you don't see that in MMOs is that it's also very labor intensive. That must have taken so much work to get each of those kind of artisan quests crafted. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's why you don't see it.
I think that's part of it. I mean, one of the one of the things with MMOs is they have to be consistent. You have to have updates. They need to be. You have to bring new content or people get bored. That's the other thing you have to balance out. But the Secret World is doing that. They have issues, is what they call them. You know, like magazine issues and things like that. And it brings new quests. And by limiting, I think, how many quests you actually can carry on you at any one time, and yes, most quests are repeatable and things like that, which is awesome. But by doing that, you actually force people to stick to a particular set of story. Instead of collecting the 25 quests you can put in your log, going to an area, slaughtering everything, because obviously you're supposed to kill everything and maybe collect things off of people. You don't even need to pay attention to it. So it immerses you.
That sounds pretty cool. I do like that.
So at some point in time, if you want to step foot into there, I'll set foot in there with you. And, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just take a look at the website. That does look very interesting.
I'll introduce you to my blood blade.
So someone mentioned in the chat there that Deus Ex as an MMO would be awesome, and that it does look kind of like that.
Nickany. Hearts to Nickany.
Yeah.
I have to say, when it comes to Deus Ex, how to do a spy game, a game where it's all about not being seen, where it's all about not being found, I think I'd have a hard time seeing that in an MMO. Yeah, everybody would walk around stealthed. Nobody would see each other. It would be interesting.
As soon as you apply that mechanic, basically everyone has to turn invisible, because that's the only way that it'd work, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work in a multiplayer game. There was a multiplayer version of Deus Ex that came on the same disc, and it didn't work. For that very reason.
It would be rather interesting. And so the Old Republic is also being brought up. The Old Republic did kind of have something like the Secret World when it came to quests. Kind of. Because you had voice acting, you had instance things. It was all about you seeing the story told to you and you making choices and things like that. But honestly, it didn't feel as immersive to me as the Secret World. And right. It may have been because, just like Garnicus said, those investigation quests completely added something new to it. Completely added something new to it. I mean, honestly, it's just... I'm just sort of sitting here going, wah! And I just also noticed a question, so of course I'm going to answer it. Cubeled says, does anyone in this channel have any idea about MMOs? Or are these two people bored out of our heads and they're just talking for the sake of talking? Hearts to you. No, we actually do know quite a bit about MMOs. But welcome to MMOBuff.TV. We do more than MMO buffs here. And Pauline has never touched anything with an EA logo. Interesting. But yes, so when it comes to the questing experience, if you're doing the grind thing, which is coming back and actually disappeared for a while and it's coming back, some people do want that. Some people do want that grind experience. Some people do want that I have to spend 70 days grinding this rep so that I can buy the Fruit Loops pants of awesomeness so that I can go into this one dungeon and kill Bob, because Bob is a bad guy.
Yeah, and I totally see that. I've done it myself in EverQuest. I've spent 17 hours waiting for something to spawn. That wasn't a very good thing anyway, and I wasn't going to get anything interesting from it, but it was rare. And it was that kind of the sticker book effect, I guess, isn't it? It's you're getting something that no one else has, and that's a big draw. And if that can be balanced, and if you can make it so that it rewards you just enough so that you keep doing it, then that's great. And that's certainly a valid thing for MMOs to do.
Well, that's one of the draws is I have something that nobody else has. That's part of the rating experience, actually, and a little bit of the PvP experience as well, back in the old school days with WoW, where you had the warlords and you had the field marshals and things like that. I still remember being part of the field marshal group where you woke up, sat down, PvP'd for 18, 19 hours, and it was decided in that group who was going to get Grand Marshal that week. And if people were getting too close to the kills and to the PvP and everything for the Grand Marshal, people would stop PvPing because it was decided as a group. Now, to answer CubeSlet's questions, we weren't fanboying Secret World. We're talking about the questing experience and how it's evolved in MMOs. And I was just commenting that the Secret World's questing experience was exceptional compared to most MMOs that are out there. It definitely brought a new style to the questing experience that a lot of people have not seen. And even to this day, you really can't match it with the exclamation point dude standing there holding a quest for you, which is really,
fetch me 10 rabbits.
Yeah, kill me 10 wolves. So yes, we have, when it comes down to it, MMOs over the years have evolved greatly. I mean, you started out in the grand scheme of things, the good old, we're bringing you the best our technology can bring you, which invited things like grind questing and trying to put those gates and targets so far and advanced for people that they had to spend hours and hours playing things back in the old school of Ultima Online, old school EverQuest, things like that. And then we've now moved to a day and age where MMOs are easier to get your hands on because there's a wider variety. There are ones that specialize in PvP. There are ones that are trying to specialize in everything. There are ones that specialize in or in the PvE experience. And now we've got, like I said, the one that doesn't even have combat in it or competition in it. And that's a new one.
It'll be interesting to see how that manages to do it, because I think humans as a species are looking for competition in everything they do, and it is going to be, if they can make it so that it's purely cooperative, I'll be impressed. I'll be very impressed. There are certain MMOs or MMO type games. There was a game called Global Agenda, which was touted as a massively multiplayer first-person shooter. What it turned out to be really was a sci-fi version of Team Fortress 2.
Everything's a clone of everything else, damn it.
It is. But it had some great PvE stuff, where you play. It was 4 players in a PvE environment. You'd have to get to the end of it, and you get experience for that and loot for it, and that was really good. And that's kind of like some of the 4v1 games that are appearing.
No, you go 4v1, and I immediately start thinking Shadow Realms. You know, I immediately go that route. It's not an MMO, so to speak, but they talk about the fact that there's going to be almost like this persistence to the worlds in these episodes and things. And you have 4 players against 1 player. 4v1. It's basically Overlord, the tabletop game, in a futuristic world with super-powered heroes is really what it's like. That one player is your GM, that Overlord, who is doing everything they can to stop you, and you and your 3 friends have to try to stop them. Or maybe you're the Overlord. But I think they actually call him the Shadow Lord. But again, this is new. They've just really announced the name of this at Gamescom this past week. So.
There's also Evolve, which is kind of interesting. It fits in with the name of the theme of the show, and that's a similar thing, really. I don't know if it's got persistence to it, but it's 4 people versus a monster. It doesn't take an RPG kind of slant. It's more Left 4 Dead sort of thing. Basically, one guy is a huge monster that can level up, and that's the whole evolution part of the game. And the 4 players have to try and trap and kill the monster. So there are quite a few of those sort of games coming along, and they're kind of using some of the dungeon crawl aspects.
Start to get into roguelikes.
It is, yeah. I've got that down in my notes actually about roguelikes and how popular they are at the moment.
They're growing in popularity.
Yeah, especially
that's what's exciting to me. But yes. I'm going to quickly answer Cublet's problem because apparently Cublet's doesn't have quite a lot of patience. When it comes to why people stop playing any MMO, and it literally makes a difference whether I'm talking The Secret World, I'm talking Star Wars, The Old Republic, I'm talking World of Warcraft. It doesn't even make a difference if I'm talking about EverQuest or what have you. There are more than one reason for it. People don't play a game just to get one thing out of it, especially not an MMO. Because honestly, if you are playing an MMO just because your friends are playing it, you're not getting as much enjoyment out of the game as you could be. And that's just a statement of fact. It doesn't mean the game is bad. It just means it may not be tailored towards you. I know some people who are massive, and I mean massive fans of SO. And I know some people who have played SO and went, this has completely destroyed my love of this franchise. I don't like this at all. It's clunky. It feels weird. It's not my style. Why can't I double jump? And then there are others who will look at a game and just go, I can't pay for it anymore, so therefore I can't play it. And unfortunately, Secret World is not one quest at a time. It's actually more. And it is not the worst idea ever. The worst idea ever, in my personal opinion, when it comes to questing, dailies. Just throwing that out there. Seriously. Dailies.
So in terms of the rest of the MMO experience from that game, does it weigh up to the quests? Does it? You talked about
no.
how the combat was a little bit flawed in the
beginning. Yeah. The PvP is not that good. In fact, I couldn't get a PvP match to start if I wanted one, which is kind of sad because they're supposed to be really cool. 2, their end game content, their dungeons and things that require 5-mans are interesting because there's still some sort of story into it. There's still some sort of almost cutscenes here and there, but it's sort of the same old as you see in any other place. 4 people, 5 people walk into a dungeon, you kill bosses. Woo.
I thought that was going to be a joke there.
4 people walk into a bar. Woo. You know, it's one of those things that is just... It doesn't hit all the boxes, but if you're looking for a really immersive story, that's going to be one of the things that I would recommend as a Secret World. You don't need to have everybody playing with you. You can get together with a group here and there. You can play it alone, or you can play it with a couple people, or you can play it with an actual guild. They do actually have guilds in that game. And one of the things that I find interesting is Templars can group with Illuminati. Illuminati can group with dragons. Everybody can group together. And I have to say, I really am glad that we caught Cubeletz's final goodbye live, and it will be forever immortalized on YouTube, because that kind of information is very analytical and incredibly informative. Thanks, Cubelets. But yes.
Yeah, I mean, it does raise a point with me, the idea that the dev team is working so hard on curating the content for the game, because one of the things that I really enjoyed, and it's again what I was talking about earlier, is the idea that the game itself was an organic experience, and the game itself give rise to emergent gameplay. And that is a huge thing for me. Emergent gameplay is such a big thing, to the point where I believe that a lot of games have risen and fallen entirely on the idea of emergent gameplay.
You're going to have to define that for some of our viewers. I'm not going to mention who.
By emergent gameplay, I just mean that you find things in the game that aren't intended by the game to be gameplay. Things in the game that become fun to you, in the same way that I like to climb up mountains and find my way out of maps. That is a form of emergent gameplay for me. And it's not necessarily something that's planned. I don't know how many of you are huge first-person shooter fans, but in the Quake series, there was rocket jumping. Completely unintended. You shoot at the floor and jump. You shoot at the floor and jump, and you fly in the air. I think it's a major mechanic of Team Fortress 2 as well, where it was intended, but in these initial games, it wasn't intended, and it was it was a way to move faster and to get to places that you weren't supposed to get to, and it made it feel more like an athletic pursuit, because it wasn't a case of everyone could walk at the same speed or everyone could run at the same speed. It was a case of if you worked really hard and you you put in the time and the effort into learning how to move, you could move faster than other people. It gave it an analog feel.
That's almost a little bit about what happened with Guns. Guns is it's a game that we covered not too long ago. We covered it this past year, and Guns 2 is a change. Or okay, they had something in the game in the first version of the game called K-Style. Again, emergent. It had to deal with wall jumping, wall running, things that technically you really weren't supposed to be able to do in the game. People figured it out. People made it a big part of it. It got to the point where if you could not do this, you would lose the game. So what they did in the end is they decided, well, if you all are going to do that, we're actually going to make it part of the game now. So in Guns 2, when they brought it out, it's like, we're bringing this technology that you guys have helped us discover because you guys have literally made it the important thing for why the gameplay needs to work this way, and you've made it part of it. We're going to take this thing, which is called K-Style, and bring it into the game itself. Innovation through fan immersion and emergent gameplay.
That just demonstrates to me that the developers don't really have an understanding of what it was that made the game so good, and that crosses the boundaries of all creative endeavors, and that sequels to movies are always, well, not always, but inevitably terrible because the director doesn't understand.
All three of them.
There are some exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, the people who make something that's wildly popular don't often understand what it was that made it popular, and the reason that is because often it was an accident. It was serendipity. It was a case of they didn't really know what they were doing, but they didn't constrain those things, and they allowed them to grow.
Well, see, that's the thing. You can't plan for every eventuality. You just can't. That's human nature. There's always going to be somebody who figures something out that nobody thought of. I mean, that's part of innovation. It's part of the invention and innovation. You can't, as a developer, sit there, and it makes a difference whether you are making a game where the entire purpose is your pixel going back and forth like Pong, or whether you are making the most expansive and immersive MMO ever designed ever. There is always going to be somebody sitting in their mom's basement, because I'm totally making fun of us as gamers here, sitting in their mom's basement going, I bet you I can figure that out and do something different with it. Let me try this. just the nature of it.
Yeah,
really,
I
really
agree. It's that to me is the golden part of gaming. It's feeling like you're doing something above and beyond what the game initially offered you, and that runs through everything. And I guess that's kind of half of why I have such a soft spot for EverQuest, is because I don't think the developers of EverQuest, Varant at the time before they became Sony, really knew what they were doing. They'd put together a game which a kind of team effort where there was lots of stuff going on and no one had really thought about how it all worked, and it just was left to its own devices, and by doing that it was an interesting game. And it was interesting because it didn't tell you everything, it didn't spell everything out for you. It allowed some creative leeway, and it allowed you to do something in your mind, which is what all the great horror movies do.
So basically, to make a really good game, make certain that it has some kind of horror elements into it.
Not really horror elements, but yeah.
I'm teasing.
I think developers need to ease back a bit on the control of games. I think developers are very scared of random. They're very scared of losing control of what it is that they've created. And I see that myself as a developer. You program a game, and you want it to work the way you programmed it, and you can be very fearful of the game doing something emergent. But some of the best games I've ever played have been the result of many emergent mechanics. And the developers not being afraid of putting a bit of randomness into it. Let the computer throw the die.
How interesting. You know, I kind of look at it from the perspective as, you know, there, it's, it, another change we've seen in MMOs is the sandbox. Sandbox versus theme park. Theme park, you're on rails for the entire story, through your progression for your character, etc. Sandbox, the developers give you tools. Landmark is a brilliant example of this. They give you tools, build something, do what you want. Maybe we'll use it in the game itself when it comes out for EverQuest next. You know, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, but it is a pure sandbox.
Hmm.
So, you know, it's one of those things. If I think no matter which way you look at it, the MMO market is going to forever change, and it's going to grow, and it's going to advance with the technology, but it's also going to advance through innovation. It's going to advance through the little guys, and I'm still a huge supporter of indies, who come up with an idea, and who knows, Wander, this game that has no competition, it's all about really exploration and stuff like that, it may crash and burn. It may. But you know what it did? It raised awareness about something. That maybe, just maybe, there's somebody out there who could come up with a way to make it work. Now, I am curious to see what the end result will be here. Because, you know, when you have a game, and honestly, it is really beautiful, like Wander, it's exceptionally beautiful. But if you're going to have a game where the entire purpose is things like exploration, the game needs to look gorgeous. It really, really does. But, you know, someone having little ideas like this and bringing it to the forefront to players, to other people, whether they're publishing it themselves, hopefully. No offense to AAA people. No offense at all. AAAs, I take my hats off. You guys are the ones with the money to really pull out some of the bigger changes. But generally speaking, if you're going to make a change in an MMO, it really should be innovating only one or two things, not revamping everything, like trying to redo what classes and like and what PvP should be like and all those other things. Like to pick something and kind of make that the thing that changes you from all the others. Because otherwise you will ostracize an entire market, and that's AAAs. Indies can get away with it because they're not answering to the bigger the guys and with the bank purse strings and things like that. So... But yes, I'm going to let you answer this question from Ryakachi, and then I just realized the time. I'm really sorry. I didn't want to run too long because I do have to pause periodically because of the jaw. I do apologize, folks. But Ryakachi's question, how do you feel about this? You enjoy breaking games. You're a developer, which in that sense is logical due to your experience. But you also mentioned that developers are afraid of the randomness or people figuring out accidentally things that shouldn't happen. So how does that reflect to yourself as a developer with the kind of emerging thinking?
I think you've got to be able to, in my personal view, you've got to be able to straddle the line. Julian Gollop is a guy who made the original XCOM. He's working on a game at the moment, which is a remake of a game from 1985 called Chaos Battle of the Wizards, which is basically a tabletop board game.
I was about to say... Tabletop games, if you don't play them, you really, really should. The amount of games out there that are successful because people took the time to turn them into tabletops first, amazing.
Yeah.
Because XCOM, that's what happened with XCOM. You know that, right?
Yeah, there is a tabletop game of that, isn't there?
No, the guy, I believe it was XCOM. Fingers crossed on this, because this I read about this, etc., a little while ago, so it's not like it's fresh in my brain, but the guy was like, something's not working in the game design here, and he went to Sid from Sid Meier's, and they turned it into a tabletop, and they found out what was wrong with it, and then they went back and they fixed it.
Right.
So, you know, you have to take your hat off there. Turn something into a tabletop game first, and then turn it into an MMO. Go ahead. Sorry.
But the thing about that is that the entire game is emergent, and the entire game is run by random rolls of the dice. Every single thing that happens in the game, and when you play this game from 1985, you see a different game every time you play it. It's on a screen which is a 15 by 12 grid. It's a tiny, tiny little playing area, but every game you play is different. The AI is completely different. The AI isn't predictable because it's got randomness introduced into the way that it plays, so it plays an unpredictable and imperfect game. And that makes it spooky. It makes it very unnervingly realistic. Like you're playing someone who isn't perfect, but is almost devious because they're doing things which you wouldn't expect. I love that, and I think that it's all too easy when you look at something like when Oblivion came out and they were talking about the Radiant AI and how basically all of the things that happen in the world would happen because of random occurrences or chaotic occurrences, maybe not random. And then a month before they released Oblivion, they were still having problems where wolves would take over an entire town, and you'd go to the town and everyone would be dead and there'd be wolves, wolves everywhere. And they had to turn it down at the last minute. They had to basically say, look, we don't have control of this, so all we can do is ramp it right down and deliver the game which people were expecting to play. And that was a massive disappointment for me, because there would be no greater joy than going into a town and find out the wolves or orcs or something had taken over the town. That to me would feel like an emergent and unpredictable and interesting thing.
Well, that's one of the things they were toting about EverQuest Next. Actually, now I need to pause. Was it ESO or EverQuest Next that they were thinking about it with? Oh, wow. My brain has hiccuped. But one of them was talking about having a bit of AI to the NPCs. So if you had orcs, which were known for robbing caravans, they would be near caravan routes, but they'd only be near ones that weren't traveled very frequently. And then as soon as they noticed that there's more and more travelers, they'd move to a new location.
That is perfect.
That is an interesting concept. My concern with things like that is how they make use of something like that. It's amazing to have the kind of ever-changing world where, you don't know if you're going to go there and you're going to find the mobs you want. But if those mobs are required for a quest, or if those things are required for your character to grow, it would irritate me.
Yeah.
If because it was left to the sandbox realm, I would be a lot more open to that. I'd love to see it. Wolves, orcs, heck, bring on the flying dolphins. I don't care. Bring it on. ESO, Elder Scrolls Online. That's for Gothic Slicer's question there. But yeah, like I said, I've just realized the time. And unfortunately, I am not going to let us do a post show today. And the only reason for this is because my jaw has exploded in pain. So, sorry. I can only talk so much right now. And I do apologize, everyone. But we will start having more post shows and things like that. So yes, you can expect things to change. Remember, folks, this is the very last MMOBuff podcast episode. Next week, however, is the start of something new. It's just the start. In fact, it's sort of the intermittent. And the real announcements come in September when we actually start bringing you the 1 year in MMOBuff changes. So, remember, we have shows every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Our Saturday show has changed to YouTube only, and that will be coming out very, very, very soon. And we are also going to be bringing you a lot of swag over the next couple weeks. A lot of stuff from Gamescom. We have a lot of interviews and things that we're going to be bringing to you as well. And we also have some new people who are going to be joining the MMOBuff team. Shock, horror, dance. And now, of course, before we end the show, can I get the developer dance? Just... That's the Cabbage Patch.
Is it?
That's the Cabbage Patch.
Get the developer... Hang on.
2 points for creativity. 2 points for creativity. 3 points for creativity, maybe? All of those things.
That makes it 3 points in total?
Maybe. Out of what?
That'll do. Out of 3. Maximum points.
I see. Trying to make herself an easy achiever. Funny. But yes, I want to thank all of you for showing up. It has been a bit of a ride here at MMOBuff this past couple of weeks, and hopefully things will change for the better. But on that note, leads me to say, Lewis, you are a star.
Thank you very much. A giant ball of burning gas.
Sure, with a sock.
Yep.
With a woolly
sock. The
sock
is wool, but it doesn't burn.
Mm-hmm. But yes, and on that note, it leaves me to say to each one of you, thank you so much. And yeah, like I said, there's going to be some big changes here at MMO Buff. And on that note, hearts, MMO love to you all. And yes, Gamescom is over. Yes, it is. Oh, it's exciting. We have so much stuff from Gamescom. It's like explode. Explode. But yes. Yes. See, I think Lewis needs troll school personally, right, Kachi?
It's only my first episode. I can't start trolling you yet.
Yes, you can. Go on, give it your best shot. Let's get your best troll in.
Don't put me on the spot like that. I need to work up to it.
You need to warm up to troll.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. But yes, on that note, my friends, we will be back, or at least I will be back tomorrow. In fact, with we have Tim from Unleashed. From Unleashed, which is a game from Motika. He is joining us from the communities to talk about global communities. And it'll be an interesting one because I do believe we're going to let Screenager have yet another night off since he came back from Gamescom. And it'll be hopefully Blank Space, myself, and Tim talking communities with you all. Wednesday, we have Blizzard stuff occurring. Thursday, the data mine. We're joined by somebody who goes by the name Lunchable Socks. His name is actually Juste. He is a musician and composer. He is the musical genius, and I do use that term with great pleasure, behind Liquid Flower's game Cube 1. The music in that is exceptional. The sound is all of that stuff exceptional. It's great. And he is joining us on the data mine when we get together with, hopefully Spiky Chris will be joining us this Thursday. He's still not sure. But I will still have Adam Arcus. Cute. Yes, Mr. Beardman. Adam will be joining as well. For those of you who are unaware, he is also an independent developer. And we're going to talk about what it takes to build a game that requires music. And that's pretty much any game you create. And as an independent developer, what resources do you really have? We've talked on the data mine about things such as Unity and the CryEngine and various other game engines. And heck, we've even talked about VR. We've talked about actual building things in like parkour into games. This Thursday, it's all about the sound. And we will be bringing you some sounds. That's all I'm going to say on that one. And then Friday, Cosmotronic. You're definitely going to want to be here for that because we're giving away some stuff on the Cosmotronic show. Some stuff that you really can't get your hands on unless you are at Gamescom. So, yeah. And on that note, keep your eyes on MMOBuff.TV because we have some extra articles coming out this week about Guild Wars. We've got some stuff about Heroes of the Storm. We've got some stuff about Warlords of Draenor. We've got some stuff coming out about Hex. We've got some stuff. We've got things coming. So follow us and all that stuff. And on that note, Lewis, big hearts to you. You and your big sock.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
See you later.